When you think about bodybuilding, what's the first thing that pops into your head? A legit sport packed with discipline and dedication? Or more like an over-the-top show where chasing the perfect body often pushes people way past human limits? That's the big question driving this video. Is bodybuilding still a sport, or has it turned into something completely different? Since ancient Greece, the human body's been celebrated as a symbol of strength and beauty. But today, when we see stages lit up with athletes showing off massive physiques, it's hard not to wonder, where does inspiration end and excess begin? The clash between those classical ideals and the extreme modern look makes us curious, and honestly, a little uneasy. Think back to the first time you ever saw a bodybuilder. You were probably impressed by the sculpted muscles, but maybe also a little shocked. Behind that striking image are stories of insane discipline, but also sacrifices most of us can't even imagine. What looks like just aesthetics actually comes with a huge emotional and physical price tag. And it's not just about muscles. Bodybuilding has always carried a cloud of controversy, rumors about prep methods, debates over health, and endless arguments about how far you should go in pursuit of the perfect physique. What's supposed to be pure competition and an art form often turns into heated discussions. But does the audience even notice all that? Most of the time, we just clap for the final result on stage without thinking about what it took to get there. And that's the reflection we're inviting you into. Is bodybuilding today the same thing that once started with ideals of balance and symmetry? Or has it shifted into something completely different at its core? This video isn't here to hand you ready-made answers. It's here to spark thought. As you watch, we want you to ask yourself, is this a celebration of what the human body can achieve, or is it a spectacle that borders on a freak show? So get ready to dive in. We're going back to the roots, tracing how bodybuilding evolved over the decades, and figuring out how we got to today's scene. In the end, it's up to you to decide, is bodybuilding still a sport, or has it become something else entirely? To understand modern bodybuilding, we've got to rewind to its beginnings, back when everything was simpler and more straightforward. In the early days, what we now call bodybuilding looked a lot like strongman shows, guys lifting crazy heavy weights just to wow the crowd. Over time, though, it stopped being pure entertainment and grew into something bigger, the aesthetic pursuit of the ideal physique. That's when Eugen Sandow showed up, a guy many call the father of modern bodybuilding. Sandow wasn't just a strongman. He was the perfect mix of strength, beauty, and proportion. His muscles were shown off like real works of art, inspiring massive audiences and raising the human body to almost sculptural levels. No wonder people called him the perfect physique. The first competitions influenced by Sandow had a clear focus: symmetry, proportion, and overall health. It wasn't about who had the biggest biceps, but who had the most balanced, harmonious body, something worthy of being compared to classical Greek statues. Excess didn't belong here. It was all about refined aesthetics, discipline, and striving for the best version of yourself. Crowds back then loved it. Seeing those physiques wasn't just shocking, it was motivating. Many believed they could reach that kind of ideal shape with dedication. At that moment, bodybuilding was seen as an invitation to self-improvement, a lifestyle that tied together discipline, health, and beauty. And let's not forget, in those early days, the sport didn't carry the weight of today's controversies. Quite the opposite, it had a clean, positive image tied to well-being and personal growth. It showed that the human body could be shaped not just by genetics, but by sheer determination. That early stage laid the foundation for everything that came later. It gave bodybuilding the respect and credibility it needed to grow into something bigger. Without those beginnings rooted in harmony and athletic ideals, bodybuilding might never have become what it is today. Over time, bodybuilding stopped being just about chasing that classical Greek statue look and started getting professional. The big turning point came in 1965 with the creation of Mr. Olympia, the biggest competition in the sport to this day. That event raised the bar completely, turning bodybuilding into a true global spectacle. From then on, it wasn't just about harmony and proportion anymore. Size and conditioning started to take center stage. That shift was nothing short of a revolution. If before the ideal physique was about balance and health, now the goal was to shock the crowd with bigger and sharper muscles. The stage became a battlefield of giants, with athletes pushing their visible limits to impress both judges and fans. Classical aesthetics gave way to visual impact, marking the birth of a brand new era in bodybuilding. And in that scene, one name stood taller than the rest: Arnold Schwarzenegger. More than just a champion, he became the ultimate ambassador of the sport. With his charisma and his run of Mr. Olympia titles, Arnold took bodybuilding far beyond the stage and into mainstream culture. Movies, interviews, and magazine covers turned him into a worldwide icon who inspired generations. Arnold didn't just make bodybuilding famous, he tied it to the dream of personal transformation. To many, he proved that discipline and dedication could take someone from total obscurity to worldwide glory. His influence was so massive that, even today, his name is still tied to the sport's golden peak, symbolizing the shift from athletic ideals to the age of mass and muscle. The media played a huge role in this. Fitness magazines, documentaries like Pumping Iron, and ad campaigns painted bodybuilders as larger-than-life superhumans. The sport broke out of its niche and grabbed mainstream attention, fueling an even bigger obsession with massive, jaw-dropping physiques. Marketing jumped on board too. Supplement companies, gyms, and equipment brands plastered champions on ads, building a multi-million-dollar industry around bodybuilding. It wasn't just a sport anymore. It became a business, a global show selling both dreams and products. This transition from art to size completely redefined bodybuilding. What had once been about balance and proportion turned into showmanship and shock value. As bodybuilding hit peak professionalism, the stage stopped being just a competition platform and turned into full-on entertainment. Posing routines got more elaborate, blending technique, theatrics, and even artistic elements. Athletes had just a few minutes to not only display their physique, but also tell a story with their body, captivating judges and fans alike. And here's the kicker. Winning in bodybuilding isn't only about muscle mass or conditioning. There's a massive layer of subjectivity in judging. The way an athlete poses, the confidence they radiate, even the music they choose, all of that can sway the crowd and the judges. Each performance is basically a carefully choreographed show. That's why raw strength faded into the background. What really matters is the image you project on stage. The athlete has to inspire, impress, and stir emotions. Being strong isn't enough. You have to look extraordinary. That shift turned bodybuilding into way more than just muscle flexing. It became a full-blown visual spectacle. Over time, a fan culture also emerged. People started following athletes like true rock stars, not just for their stage presence, but for the lifestyle they represented. Charisma became a weapon as powerful as a massive chest or giant quads. Extreme physiques drew attention, but magnetic personalities built legacies. That bond between athletes and fans created something unique. Crowds didn't just show up to watch a contest. They came to cheer like it was a big concert or major sports event. The stage became a showcase, and the athletes, stars who shined way beyond their muscle mass. And let's not forget, this spectacular format matched exactly what the audience wanted. People came expecting something out of the ordinary. The bigger, flashier, and more theatrical the show, the louder the reaction. Bodybuilding found its strength in exaggeration, in its ability to push past the everyday, delivering fans an almost cinematic experience. But that theatrical side of bodybuilding opened the door to a new question. How much does the spectacle actually enrich the sport, and how much does it distort its essence? That's what leads us into the next chapter of this story, when the fascination with bigger and grander started to blur into what some would call a straight-up freak show. As bodybuilding pushed into new frontiers, athletes reached levels of size and conditioning nobody had ever imagined before. Today we see physiques that almost look unreal, gigantic muscles, razor-sharp definition, and proportions that seem to defy biology itself. For die-hard fans, this is the ultimate expression of human effort and dedication. But for outsiders, the first reaction is often shock, sometimes even labeling these bodies as unnatural or downright scary. That outside perspective is key to understanding how bodybuilding's image has shifted. What once symbolized balance and aesthetic harmony is now, in some cases, seen as almost grotesque excess. Many people who don't follow the sport boil it down to a snap judgment. That's just too much. And in many ways, this negative perception has gained traction in popular culture, putting the sport's legitimacy under a spotlight. Another crucial factor in this shift is the ethical and health debate. Chasing ever more extreme physiques often involves powerful substances, harshly restrictive diets, and training routines that push human limits. The price can be devastating: heart problems, hormonal imbalances, even early deaths. And it's exactly this darker side that grabs headlines. Sensationalist coverage has done a lot to cement that stigma. Shocking photos, scandals involving athletes, and exaggerated headlines build a narrative that modern bodybuilding isn't a sport anymore, but rather a freak show, a spectacle of extremes designed to provoke discomfort. And once that label sticks, it's hard to convince the general public otherwise. Let's not forget, audiences often just want entertainment, and the media knows this. So controversies are milked for clicks, while bodybuilders themselves end up cast as characters in a story way bigger than their personal achievements. Instead of athletes, they're painted as symbols of a dangerous lifestyle, when in reality, each journey is much more complex. Of course, not everyone sees it that way. While some point to excess and abnormality, others recognize the sheer dedication, discipline, and passion behind every athlete's path. It's a striking contrast, fascination and repulsion coexisting, shaping how the sport is viewed by the world. This mix of admiration and rejection creates a central dilemma. Can modern bodybuilding ever escape the shadow of the freak show and reclaim its place as a legitimate form of art and sport? Despite the criticism and the image often tied to extremes, bodybuilding can't be reduced to a carnival of excess. Behind the stage, there's daily grind, strict discipline, and a deep scientific base of nutrition, training, and recovery. Every physique you see on stage is the product of years of study, fine-tuning, and commitment that goes far beyond vanity. Recognizing that effort is essential to grasp the sport's true dimension. In recent years, bodybuilding itself has tried to adapt to these pressures and criticisms. That's why new categories were introduced as alternatives to the massive, extreme look. Classic physique, for example, brings back the golden era aesthetic, putting symmetry and proportion back in the spotlight. There's also men's physique, which promotes a more athletic, accessible image, something closer to the everyday fan's reality. These divisions opened up way more possibilities inside bodybuilding. Today, each category highlights different aspects, giving both athletes and fans a wider variety of styles. That makes the sport more inclusive, less tied to the idea that only the most extreme physiques matter. It not only renews fan interest, but also creates space for new competitors to feel represented. Another big plus of this diversification is that it brings back values that were there at the very start of bodybuilding: symmetry, balanced aesthetics, and the celebration of health. Sure, the massive physiques still grab attention, but the return of those elements shows the sport can connect with different audiences and reclaim part of its original essence. This renewal also helps rebalance the narrative. Instead of being seen as something bizarre or intimidating, bodybuilding can once again be admired as both an art form and a sport. The stage, once ruled by extremes, now celebrates a diversity of shapes and styles, giving the sport a chance to rebuild its public image. The key thing to understand is that bodybuilding is multifaceted. It goes way deeper than what you see on the surface. There's science, discipline, and passion behind every detail. Some athletes inspire through sheer strength, others through aesthetics, and many through personal stories of overcoming obstacles. This diversity is what keeps the sport alive and constantly evolving. In the end, bodybuilding is still about pushing human potential, whether through the jaw-dropping size of extreme physiques or the timeless beauty of balanced, classical forms. As fans, it's up to us to decide how we want to see it, as nothing more than a spectacle of excess, or as a celebration of everything the human body can achieve when guided by discipline and the will to push past limits. After everything we've explored, one thing is clear: bodybuilding is way more than just huge muscles or controversies. It's a story of dedication, discipline, and evolution that makes us reflect on the limits of the human body and how far we're willing to go in pursuit of our ideals. And now I want to hear from you. Do you still see bodybuilding as a legitimate sport, or has it crossed the line into pure spectacle? If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and drop a like. It really helps the channel grow and keeps us motivated to bring more content like this. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of the next uploads. If you'd like to support us even more, consider becoming a channel member. It's a special way to help strengthen this community we're building together. Now tell me in the comments, which part of this journey stood out the most to you? Was it the origins inspired by classical ideals, Arnold's rise and the birth of Mr. Olympia, or the debate over how far the human body can be pushed? Your input means a lot, and I love chatting with you guys down there. And of course, this doesn't stop here. On the end screen, I'll leave a special video that you'll definitely want to check out next. So click over and keep going with me on this journey. See you in the next video.